have all been just blatantly lying, right? And that's what you guys always have to do. So you guys claimed I said I know everything and no one else does. That's a blatant lie. You asked me.
What he asked was,
when you say I understand this and everyone else is a liar, that is you saying I understand this and no one else does.
Witsit, were you done?
Of course I wasn't done. I was mid-sentence.
Okay, let Witsit finish, guys, and then somebody can go next. Okay, just wait till he's done. Let's all do that.
He said, "Oh, you think you're the only one that knows the truth and everyone else is wrong." And I said, "No, I didn't say that. That's a straw man." And now we've repeated it as if that really happened. Because he said, "Is it possible that you're wrong?" And I said, "No." And the reason I said no is because objectively, the current heliocentric model, this is the claim, is that there's an equivalence of position kinematically, and that based on observations from the Earth, you cannot prove one way or the other. If you actually understood the model, you would know that, but just saying you're wrong about everything doesn't mean anything. And then lying and claiming I said I'm the only one that knows everything and everyone else is wrong doesn't somehow make you correct. You had to blatantly lie about what happened.
Yeah, the truth is the truth, regardless of what you think about it. It's just the truth. So if it's objectively true, then that's just the truth.
That's why you guys had to interrupt, because you see that now that I got to lay it all out, you don't have anything to say.
Well,
so you get to propagate a lie of a narrative if you don't let me respond.
Going back to the educational system, one of the things that I have noticed the educational system is really good at is creating what I call kind of like the Agent Smith complex, which is when somebody steps outside of the societal norms, Agent Smith will pop up within anybody that's been trained within the system to ensure that the slaves will keep the other slaves in order. Just like when we were talking about starting homeschooling, right? Somebody's going to pop up and be like, well, possibly it could turn into a public school situation. Okay, so you're saying the worst thing that could possibly happen starting a system of homeschooling is that it could turn into what we currently have? That's the worst thing that could happen? Is that an argument?
Stating the obvious isn't an Agent Smith situation. It's just throwing out a wrench to what could be, a problem in the future. I don't know if
well, no, it's people that
you're not
pop
listening
up.
to Napalm's point. Napalm's point is
people,
to act like a rebuttal to the homeschool suggestion is to say it could turn into what we currently have. Okay, so then it's still better to try to make another system then, huh?
Right,
but
what
that
I'm
answers the
saying is
question I'd asked earlier. Is it for you trying to make kids to fit in the system or make a new paradigm? And it sounds like you're saying that if it makes a new paradigm, I guess it's all the better for it. So it was a half answer then.
You see, you guys just have toxic. It's like funny because when you're like, well, you do teach geocentrism, but we know that's not true, and then you ask for evidence of it, they have literally nothing. It's pretty funny. So you just talk.
I told you I have evidence that confirms the heliocentric model. I have a
but you
telescope.
didn't name anything.
I've charted stars for the fun of it. I do it recreationally. And then when you chart enough stars for long enough, you can get a pretty good idea of what's happening around you.
How so?
How so? Just the movement of the stars and how they come back on themselves and how they move into the skies. Like you formulate a map and you chart that for long enough, you can pretty much just have a pretty good idea of what's going on.
So
what do you mean? How so? The sun.
What are the stars? What are you going to see the stars doing that supposedly prove that we're moving around the sun?
There's quite a bit actually.
You can't even name one though.
Well, no, because if you're in a geocentric model, technically, as you're saying it, the stars would be in the exact same place every single time.
Why? Why?
Because the sun isn't at the center. It's the sun is moving around the planet, and it's not in a perfectly circular orbit. So yes, that's why the positions of the stars slightly change in a.
Now you're just
we're not asking for assertions. We're not asking for assertions. We're asking for evidence for the assertion you're making.
Dude, you're so out of your league, dude. You're not even remotely equipped for this conversation.
You're roboting pretty hard as well. You're doing it that for everybody.
I wonder if he just ever charted the stars while they were underneath his feet.
Guys, hold on, man. Hold on. Everyone stop. Stop. This guy's roboting hard, or is it me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm roboted.
Yeah, because you're a bullshitter. You see what I'm saying? It's just tactics. It's tactics.
Slow
It's
it
you
down
can
a
just
little
pull
bit.
your telescope.
Let's all go one at a time, please.
You can just pull your telescope out.
Incantation, incarnation. I think you're still roboting.
You ask for the evidence.
I'm on Glitch to Talk, so it's not me. It's not me roboting, unless I'm roboting now.
You are roboting.
Didn't he admit science can advance? So that means his consensus is wrong right now. It has to be wrong in order for his theory to advance or his science to advance. So I don't even understand what's the point of it.
His argument was that like you can teach them the current idea, even though you haven't actually verified it, and you can teach them that rightfully so. You know, like, and then I asked him what the actual evidence is. See, this is the truth.
That's not what I said.
That's what you said.
What I said is that science evolves. So what somebody learned 1,000 years ago without enough data would be different than what somebody 1,000 years later with more data would say. So the science and the philosophy around it evolves as more data is accrued. That's what I said.
Wait,
and that is
You said that in rebuttal.
The addition. Sorry.
Dude, wait up. You said that in rebuttal to me saying that the heliocentric model made a prediction that it wouldn't look like we're in the center, and then we looked out and saw it looks exactly like it would if we were in the center. So they changed their model to say, "Oh, never mind. Our model now says we will always look like we're in the center, and it's just an illusion." And then you responded with, "Yeah, it's justifiable for them to teach us what we think, teach everyone what they think at the time, and that science just progresses." No, it's a philosophical bias that claims that all the evidence ever is going to show that we're in the center. To quote Edwin Hubble, the idea of a central Earth can never be disproven, and we disregard it at all costs because we must avoid the horror of a special and unique position. Okay, that's what the truth is. But the children are not taught any of that. The children are not told that Edwin Hubble said that. They're not told that in 1925 they made the observations that show the distant galaxies move in relation to the Earth, which completely refuted the heliocentric model up to that point. They had to completely change the theory. They're not told that the cosmic microwave background showed anisotropic axis that lands on the Earth. They're not told any of the actual evidence. They're told the final product, the philosophical conclusion, as if it is scientific fact. And you're suggesting it's better for children to be left in the dark and lied to. That's ridiculous. That's laughably ignorant.
That's not what I said. No. That's not what I said at all. At all. What I said is that the beliefs that people had 1,000 years ago based off the information they had will be different than it is today. So if people 1,000 years ago thought the Earth was at the center of the solar system, and the information and the access to technology that they had showed that was what the case was, I don't think they did wrong by teaching them that. 1,000 years later, now that we have technology, we have improved. No, that's not. No, but you have to have a level of belief in anything. Everything is a level of belief. Like you have to. You can't function otherwise.
Right. When you said that the heliocentric model's claim is, and then you went on to say how it claims it's at the center, but now it's at the center, so they had to rewrite it. Is that the only claim that the heliocentric model makes? And did it have to change any other claim also to fit and comport with this reality? Because it seems like you red herringed or strawmanned it a little bit.
It has to change. It has to change claims the entire time. Yeah, he did. We won't give any specifics because we can't. Because Austin knows way more about my belief, but we can all gaslight him collectively. I'm smart. So they've changed the heliocentric model 1,000 times. Constantly changed it. First of all, when the heliocentric model was proposed, they said that the sun was the center of the entire universe. That's where the Newtonian mechanics came from. They only recently changed it in like the last 100, 150 years to start saying, oh, never mind. Turns out the universe is way bigger than that, and that was retarded. Okay? But this is the fact.
The first thing, though?
The heliocentric model predicted that when we look out in deep space, everything's going to be moving independently of the Earth. It's not going to care about where the Earth is because it's a tiny speck of dust in a little tucked away insignificant corner, and there's a huge universe that's doing whatever it wants to do. It doesn't care about the Earth.
Right.
They looked out in the sky, and what did they see? They saw exactly what the geocentric model predicted, which is that everything, no matter how far you look, moves specific to the Earth. That is directly the opposite of what the heliocentric theory predicted. So what did they do? Did they say, maybe our heliocentric theory is wrong? Of course not. It's a religion. They said, oh, we'll change it completely to say, oh, well, the heliocentric model will always look like it's geocentric and it's just an illusion and you'll always look like you're in the center even though you're not.
Right. So when they first came up with the idea and you put a lot of emotion behind the way you explained what it was, and then it changed and they had to change it, should they have not had that first idea in the first place? Because it seems like you're saying because they had to change it, they should have just kept their mouth shut in the beginning.
No, they shouldn't teach children as if it's a fact when it's not actually a fact. It's just an idea. Okay. And now what they should be teaching the children is the actual history of what happened. I know for a fact that they don't teach children what I just explained. They do not teach them that. They teach them, you live on a ball. It's tilted. It spins. Here's the name of the planets. Memorize them. Here's the order. They teach it as if it's a fact. Like the sky is blue. Left Wing says
they also teach. They also teach why with it. Which they also teach why. They also teach why. They don't just say this as it is. Here's why it is. Here's why we have seasons. Here's why we have this. Here's why we have that. But they don't just go about saying, "Oh, that's what it is," and you need to believe me. No, they put weight to what they're saying by explaining why things happen and why things they are, and that's the basis of education. Is why are things the way they are? That's literally what they teach. They're not saying this is you have to believe in this and this is what it is. No, this is what we see, and here's why it is what it is based off what data we currently have to explain this.
No, the data shows what we actually see is that the Earth is in the center. That is what the heliocentric model claims. Is that what we actually?
The heliocentric model never claimed that.
You have to interrupt me. I know. Trust me, I know. You're an emotional mess and you're way out of your league. So the heliocentric model objectively claims that what we observe is that the Earth is in the center and that it's just an illusion. This is a fact. It doesn't matter how much you say, nuh-uh. It's a fact. Yeah. Do you understand that it's a fact?
That's what Tycho Brahe found as well. 20 years of
observations. It's not a fact. It's not a fact. So no, I'm not going to agree with it because it's not a fact.
You want to bet $5,000?
$5,000 on what?
That what I just said is a fact.
Say it again.
Repeat precisely what you just said.
The heliocentric model's position is that what we observe is as if the Earth is in the center and it's just an illusion.
Not the Earth. Just an illusion? What is an illusion?
$5,000. Just stop talking and bet me $5,000.
No, what is the illusion?
I'll take.
Witsit, I don't even think you have $5,000.
I'll take a
Don't
Zelle.
You like live in a trailer?
No, I have an RV and a house. Don't you like not have a girlfriend and you're like really weird? You know, we're playing this game.
Let's not keep it. Let's don't make it personal. Don't make it personal.
Hold on, no. I'm not having that. What's the illusion? No, let's get back to the illusion. What is the illusion of it that they're somehow creating? Like, if it's just an illusion, you should be able to point to it and be like, here's how it's an illusion.
Hey, Leflon, why don't you jump in and say, don't make it personal when people talk about how I'm supposedly poor and live in a trailer? But then when I clap
that's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
The illusion is NASA. This is why we have NASA. This is what NASA does for us. Look at these pictures. That's the illusion.
Okay, this is the official relativistic model is that there is a kinematic equivalence with the geocentric and heliocentric model. That's a fact. And that it looks like we're in the center even though we're not. That is the official heliocentric model. The fact that people deny it is all we need to talk about. We know that you're not being honest or you're ignorant. There's no other option.
It does not say, and the heliocentric model does not say that it looks like Earth is in the center. It does not say that.
Do you want to bet $5,000?
Yeah, we can bet $5,000.
Okay.
You get your lawyer to call my lawyer, and we'll write this out. We'll write it out. We'll make a fucking contract. I'll put my money in escrow. You put yours in escrow, and we'll talk about it.
Okay. And everyone heard this, right? You're gonna actually pay me my money, bro.
I said we put it in escrow. Is what I said. But the thing is, you're gonna have to stipulate what you're talking about. You're just saying Earth is in the center. It looks like Earth is in the
That's not
center.
what I said.
You're not saying of
Yeah,
what?
there
The
you go.
heliocentric
Dude,
model
buddy.
does not dictate that the Earth is in the center of the solar system. It does not say that.
Now you had to straw man what it said, so that's why you won't actually take the
Why
bet.
can't
Because you have
people
to
just
No, I'm not
listen?
straw manning. I'm being specific.
Yeah, no,
Is what
that
I'm
isn't
being.
what you
No, you're
said
not.
at all.
You are specifically straw manning. So I never
Yeah.
said the heliocentric model says the Earth's in the center of the solar system. That's blatantly a straw man. So relativity, and to quote Einstein, he said, the struggle so violent in the day of Copernicus seems to actually be quite meaningless after all, because the statement, the Earth moves around the sun, or the sun moves around the Earth, are equally valid, and it's just
That's
a coordinate
emotion.
system preference. It's
That's
just a
just
coordinate
motion.
system.
That's nothing.
So that's called
That's
kinematic
nothing to do
equivalence.
with the heliocentric model.
That's called kinematic equivalence.
Yeah,
And
nothing to do with
kinematic
the heliocentric though.
it literally does. It's
Look,
called
listen.
kinematic.
When you
So
say
you have
heliocentric model, you
your
are
way out of here.
limited to the sun and everything out to the Oort cloud. Let's say anything beyond that is not included in the heliocentric model.
Well, you actually don't seem to know even what the words truly mean, because heliocenter would actually mean that the Earth's in the center of the universe, which is how it was first proposed, which is why it was called heliocentric.
No.
You guys always have to interrupt me.
That's just
So
not right.
heliocentric, it just I get to interrupt you because I don't think it's right.
He said
So
nuh-uh.
geocentric means Earth center, meaning that the Earth is the
Heliocentric.
center of the universe. Shut up, Leftland.
You said heliocentric, Witsit. You misspoke.
You got to stop interrupting. Then
So
you got to stop interrupting. You can have your turn, but you can't just snip and clip and interrupt. It's not fair. Go ahead, Witsit. Finish, and then you can go next. Left.
based on what the words actually mean, heliocentric means Earth sun-centered, and geocentric means Earth-centered. Technically, it's not considered a heliocentric model anymore. Okay, for one, there's like Lagrange points. There's a barycenter, and that's just the solar system. And there is no actual center. There's a great attractor, and there's no actual center to the universe. But we use the word heliocentric still just for intents and purposes. So technically speaking, if you want to, because that's what you basically are invoking is, no, the heliocentric is just about the solar system. No, that's not what heliocentric actually means. But it doesn't matter. The point is, according to the current heliocentric model, there is a kinematic equivalence. That means how bodies move in relation to each other is equivalent for both a heliocentric or geocentric interpretation. Therefore, any observation you make of things moving in the sky doesn't prove we move around the sun according to the official heliocentric model. This is just a simple fact.
All right. Did you want to respond, Leftland?
No, I was trying to tell him. He kept saying the heliocentric model means the Earth is in the middle, and he was misspeaking.
No, he never.
That's what I was trying to speak to.
He didn't say that once. No,
we
he
can
didn't.
play it back.
Yeah, please do, because I was listening as well.
It doesn't matter. Move on. Okay, I'm wrong.
Well, it does
Y'all
matter because you're lying about what he said, and that's really
no, I'm not lying. That's what I
Yeah, you
understood
are.
it to be. That means I'm not lying. So let's move on. Let's quit calling each other liars.
Well, then, if you don't understand, why are you responding?
Well, let's just play it back.
I do
Let's just play it
understand.
back so
I
that
do
we can
understand
not,
completely.
sir.
I understand completely.
Let's just play it back.
There's
Why
two
as
possible
soon as we're going to
scenarios
play
here,
it back,
right?
we're going to move
Either
on?
you haven't understood what he said, or you have
fuck it.
understood what he said.
I'm out.
and you're-
Y'all go ahead. Y'all go ahead.
Yeah. There's two possible scenarios here, Left Lane. Either you haven't understood what he said, or you have understood what he said and you're lying about it. They're the only two possibles here.
It's not the
I
only
want
two.
to clarify.
He may have misheard. He may have misheard or misunderstood. Either way,
That's fine. I wish you would admit that, though. I wish you would admit that was
I think
possible.
Witsit did misspeak once within him talking, but the problem is he kept getting clipped so many times that he had to repeat himself so many different times that I think one of the times he was saying it might have been incorrect. Either way, move on.
No, I don't think so. I would bet money I never said the heliocentric model says the Earth is in the center. I said that based on observations, the Earth is in the center. And that's what the heliocentric model says. That based on what you get with observations, it looks like the Earth is in the center. That's what observations means. So yeah, the heliocentric model says that based on observations, it looks like the Earth is in the center. This is just a fact. But this is what's so funny. The whole context of this was I was talking about homeschool curriculum. And I was talking about how children should be taught how to think, not what to think. And that they should be told the entire story. Someone else, line of y'all, jumped in and promoted the idea of teaching geocentrism. Well, what I was saying was that you teach them the full story after you teach them how to think, and then you let them figure it out. So instead of lying to them and saying, we know that the earth moves around the sun and that there's a solar system and that there's an ever expanding universe going 4 times the speed of light and all this nonsense, you teach them the actual history of what happened. You don't tactically omit the mistakes so that they don't get to see what really happened. You teach them
Correct.
the heliocentric model made this prediction, then we looked out and it matched the geocentric model, and specifically didn't match the heliocentric model. So they had to change it to say, oh, well, it's just an illusion. It's always going to look like we're in the center. Then they did the cosmic microwave background that showed that there's actually an axis of evil, as it's called, and that there's actually anisotropic distribution that centers on the earth, which also matches the geocentric position. You teach them what it actually says, that as over hundreds of years, the heliocentric model evolved to where Einstein proposed a theory that said that you can't tell the difference if the Earth's in the center or not in the center, and that they're equally valid in terms of kinematics. Then you teach them what kinematics means. You teach them the whole story without omitting parts of it. That's what I'm saying. That's just any
that's a
honest
good
person would
point.
say that's the best thing to do.
Right. That's a good point, because that's exactly why we're in this argument right now, is because somebody is going solely based off of their education, probably within our public school system, certainly within the curriculum that's outlined by our government, and saying you're wrong and you're lying, this isn't the case, because they weren't taught the whole entire story.
Exactly. So, like, if a child hears all the evidence and then chooses to believe the solar system idea, okay, as long as they are taught and understand that it's a belief, whatever. But the point is, they don't teach the children that. They teach them that it's science and that it's a fact, which is just like Napalm said, the reason that we're dealing with the people jumping in, telling me I can't homeschool people, it won't work, I shouldn't do it, and that I'm going to be brainwashing them, all this projection. Because what I'm suggesting is that you don't hide stuff from the children, you teach them the truth. And if something is a belief, you show them all the evidence and you teach them how to think logically and let them come to their own conclusion. Because if something's not empirically and scientifically verified and known to be the only explanation, you don't teach them as if it is the only explanation. That's called lying. They're lying to children.
So how would you teach your children regarding the shape of the earth? Would you say, well, like, how would you do it?
Have you not been listening at all? What kind of stupid question is that?
It's the same answer. It's like you would teach them that some people say the Earth's a ball, some people say the Earth's a plane. Here's the different sides of the ideas. Here's the evidence that they invoke, and here's how each side interprets the different evidence. And you allow them to think critically about it.
And would you curate the information that is available to your child based off of your beliefs?
I just said we would lay out all the positions and the evidence. How is it that
but you can still curate the information that contradicts yours, and you say you choose what information you would have that kid absorb, so that you can still curate the information, even if you're hypothetically, per you giving them all the data. But it could still be curated. It could be biased.
Yeah, but this isn't a proper rebuttal.
Like your school
right?
system curated all the nonsense that you believe, yeah?
Exactly. That's why it isn't a proper rebuttal, because your information was curated by this large monolithic governmental organization, right? So why would you say that somebody whose response is, I would teach them that there's a multitude of views on this specific topic. Here's both of them. What can we do to try to figure out what the truth is and allow the child to make a decision, or at least go down the path of logical inquiry?
Right.
Right? Why would you have a resistance to that type of teaching?
Well, I'm just saying
it's
very susceptible to be curated to be biased. You would want the information provided to the kid to be completely unbiased, regardless of what you think. So what you're saying about a monolithic educational system shoving something down a kid's throat can just as much apply in a homeschooling setting. Like that, like
nobody's
those are
saying it can't.
So you agree that when they curate it with a bias in the public school system, that's bad?
Yeah, I think the public school system. I agree. I'm not saying the public school system is something to be to emulate. In no way, shape, or form do I think the public school system as it currently is to be emulated, and not in any way, shape, or form.
But here's the thing. Let's go back to the heliocentric versus geocentric argument. You realize that the only reason that the heliocentric model is taught as basically fact in school, you're not taught anything else. It's taught that way solely based off of philosophical beliefs.
I disagree with that, but we'll agree to disagree.
That's the fact of the matter, though. And the reason you disagree with it is because you were not taught that it was a philosophical belief. You were taught that it was fact.
No,
exactly.
I can apply logic to the information that's provided to me and the overwhelming amount of data that supports a particular side or another. I can form an opinion based off that and the credibility of the information that's being handed. I can easily apply logic to information and where the information comes from and deduce a worthwhile opinion. Whether or not it's wrong or right or wrong, it's irrelevant, but I can still take logic, apply it to what I'm learning, where the information is coming from, and deduce not a conclusion, but deduce an idea of what's going on based on that. I don't need it to have it shoved down.
Where's the logic in thinking stars are underneath your feet?
Well, either way, here's the problem: is the people that you get the information from, right? For the heliocentric model, if you actually study what they say about the observations that have been made throughout history, you'll come to the understanding that Witsit was talking about, where it's only heliocentric based on philosophical beliefs. And the people that give you that system blatantly admit to that. So when you say you disagree and blah, 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 you're disagreeing with the people who give you the system saying, hey, it could be geocentric, could be heliocentric. We're picking heliocentric solely based on our philosophical belief system, not because of any observational data that would empirically prove that this one is superior over the.
Yeah, we're advocating that you teach the child that truth. It's you teach them what the Copernican principle is. It's the idea, the belief, the philosophy that the Earth does not occupy a special or unique position, that the Earth is insignificant and not special. And the reason they think that that makes sense is because they believe the universe is so big that it doesn't make sense for the Earth to be in a special position out of the whole universe. And that is a belief that they have. It's called the Copernican principle. The alternative is that the Earth's in the center, thus it does have a special or unique position. But if they taught the children that, almost all the children would pick the we're special decision. So that's why they don't teach them that.
Yeah, but but wouldn't they even say in the mainstream model that was sort of like the original ideas of those guys in the earlier times before they had, probes and James Webb telescopes and all these other things that they're claiming they're out there probing and going to, Mars and all this stuff, to where now they would say it is solid or whatever, No,
not when it comes to heliocentrism or geocentrism, because even if in the theory that you went out in space, right? When you're within the solar system scale, you have no access to any observations or evidence that would show you one way or the other. According to the current model, to figure out for sure if it was geocentrism or heliocentrism, you would have to get outside of the galaxy. At least you would have to get outside of our galaxy and then look around and see if it still looked like you were in the center there. So, according to their own position, it still isn't definitively proven, even if you grant them the idea that probes go to Mars and all this stuff. You'd have to get outside the galaxy and then see, does it still look like we're in the center, even though we're millions and millions of miles away from the Earth now? So, even in their own paradigm, they haven't proven heliocentrism yet.
All right, I see what you mean. Between geocentrism and heliocentrism. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I guess I was thinking of some of the other things like the Earth going around the sun. They would claim that that's fact or whatever because they're out there.
No, not even the Earth going around the sun, because you're within the mechanics of the gravitational system on the local scale that you can't tell. So
actually you can. You can easily tell whether or not we're orbiting around the sun versus the other bodies orbiting around us. We have two planets that are between us and the sun.
You're breaking up.
The sun, and we have the planets outside of our.
You're breaking up, but you're just wrong. So
at the inner planet,
you're wrong. So there's something called.
Let's try it like that. Any better?
Yeah.
Is that any better?
Yes.
All right. Well, you can easily you can easily tell that there are 2 planets between us and the sun, orbiting the sun, and the rest of the planets are outside of our orbit, orbiting the sun. That's easy enough to do with a telescope.
No, again, there's something called the neotychonic
Yeah.
system. There's something called the neotychonic.
Absolutely.
Bob, if you're going to say your piece, you got to pass the mic and not interrupt, please. You said your thing. Let him respond, please.
There's something called the neotychonic system, which it's a geocentric model that has the sun moving around the Earth and then the planets moving around the sun, which gives you that exact same kinematic effect. There's a kinematic equivalence with the neotychonic system and the heliocentric model, including the motion of the planets.
Yeah, I think, Bob, the only way you could do that is if you beg the question. Just because of the way that they move that would fit into a reified model doesn't mean that that's proof of that reified model.
Or it would be proof of a neotychonic model as well because it fits within that one.
The geometry only fits one way.
No, it doesn't. It's called a neotychonic system. There's a kinematic equivalence if the sun moves around the Earth and the planets move around the sun.
Well, you go ahead and write that up and let me review it.
It's already been written up.
Why is it not
Then
obvious?
you let me.
I don't understand why it's not obvious to just accept and point out the assumptions in those statements.
Just apply logic to what you said. You said that there are planets that move between us and the sun, and you can see the other planets move outside of them. Okay, now take an Earth
orbit.
Take Earth in the center model, have the sun moving around the Earth. Now have planets moving around the sun as it moves around the Earth. Now have 2 of the planets in between the sun and the Earth, and the rest of them orbiting around the Earth, wider than in between the sun and the Earth. And now you have a very specific and exact kinematic equivalence.
Except, of course, we can clearly define the orbits of all of the planets, including our own, and we can clearly see that 2 of them are between us and the sun, and the rest of them are outside of our orbit around the sun.
I literally just addressed that with
Did you miss what he said, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, he came out with reasons, but he hasn't been able to describe this model that he's talking about.
He literally just did.
I literally just described it.
What is a kinematic example of what you're describing, Witsit?
Okay, kinematics are how bodies move in relation to
No,
each other.
not what
Right.
it is.
Hey, but-
What is an example of it being kinematic?
You guys, we can't do we can't do any interruptions. Even if you didn't think he understood what you said, you got to let him respond, and then you can respond back because the interruptions. It just.
I know. I'm just trying to clarify what I'm asking for. That's all. I'm not trying to be rude when I do something like that.
All right.
Okay. So, first of all, kinematics means how bodies move in relation to each other. I just described the kinematic. I specifically described it. If the Earth is in the center, this is called a neotychonic system. Tycho Brahe proposed a geocentric model. And now this is a neotychonic system, a slightly updated one because we've made more observations since then. If you have the Earth in the center and the sun moves around the Earth, now all the planets are moving around the sun as the sun moves around the Earth, you would have the exact same observations of the planets that we have.
How do you get a full Venus with Venus being between us and the sun?
It's the same way you get it on the heliocentric model.
Why don't you go ahead and draw that out and let me have a look at it? I want to see how you think the path of the planets go.
Okay, I have a video that shows it. It's very simple. It's basic geometry.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, go ahead and link the video. I'll look at it.
Okay, I will when I get back to the house. And this is where you can begin to cite all of the top astrophysicists and astronomers in your own field. So we have people like Andre Assis, who did relational mechanics and showed the math of the dynamics and the kinematics. You have all kinds of people explaining this. You have Fred Hoyle explaining this, a famous astronomer that coined the term Big Bang. You have Julian Barber, a modern famous astronomer, explaining that the Earth could be geocentric and in the center. You have all kinds of people explaining that a neotychonic system easily explains all of the planetary motion. What?
Yeah, I want to see the orbits.
I didn't hear you.
I don't know what's worse, a interruption non-roboting or interrupting somebody while they're speaking while you're roboting.
Yeah,
I think
honestly,
it's worse to not be roboting because that way we don't really have to hear it.
Bob,
What I told you was
no,
that
Bob,
I'm not
Bob,
interested
you're not.
in your
Are you
name
hearing me
drop.
right now, Bob? Can you hear my voice right now?
Yeah, I hear your voice.
Yeah, I've literally in 5 minutes I've watched you interrupt like 3 times. Please stop.
Okay, well, all right, well, tell you what, all I want to see is the orbits. I'm not interested in your appeal to authorities or name dropping. Okay, just show me the
I
orbits.
didn't appeal to authority, dude. I was just explaining that you can read all kinds of literature on the subject that breaks down all of the math. So it isn't about who did the math. It's that you can show the kinematic and dynamic equivalence with the math. And the dynamic equivalence isn't even what we're discussing. That just makes it even worse for you. You can show both Einsteinian and Newtonian mechanics have a dynamic equivalence with the geocentric position with a set of inertial forces. The kinematic equivalence isn't even debated. Relativity says you can put anything at the center. You can put Jupiter at the center and explain the planets. So, like, the fact that you guys don't understand that shows you don't even understand the current model.
Well, just go ahead and link your data. I'll look at it.
Do you agree that relativity says you can put anything at the center, even Jupiter?
Do you know why relativity says that?
Because there's a kinematic equivalence of relative reference frames.
Yes, exactly, because the universe is massive.
Okay, so thank you for your concession.
I mean, if you view it as like a very complex system of gears, you can basically center the system at any one of those gears, because like an ephemeris shows you all the positions in degree in the relation to the fixed stars, and those can all be like transferred in terms of if you want to put any one of them at the center. So like you can take a zodiac and you can make it Earth centered, you can make it Sun centered, you can make it Mercury centered, and you'll get the actual kinematics of all of those gear systems that will function within that system, no matter which one you put at the center.
Yeah, you have the covariance principle and the equivalence principle. So you have the idea that there's an equivalence between inertial and accelerative frames. And so it's just simple. You have like he said it really simply too. I already said this. He said that if the Earth moves around the sun, or if the sun moves around the Earth, is a meaningless question. They're equally valid.
Which is why
the orbital elements clearly define the path of every orbit of the planets. So
you can satisfy Kepler's laws with a neo-Tychonic system.
I eagerly await your data.
Okay, and so like this, I'm saying, have you researched this?
Well, I mean, he's saying he's open to look at things. Isn't that fair enough? I mean, he is at least.
Well, Gio, do you think once I take the time to go home when I have a million things to do and I go look through all of it and I send it to him, you think he's going to come back and be like, Witsit, turns out I was wrong. Yes, the geocentric model is viable for all the planets.
Well, to be honest, hold on. Of all people, in terms of like zealotry, Bob actually will admit when he's wrong. I actually have seen him do that, and he is actually open-minded in a way. I know he seems very rigid in a sense, and you may kind of put him in a category, but I actually, of that, but I have seen him actually admit he's wrong and at times. So
okay, so. Well, yeah, whatever. I'll send it to you. I've sent it to many people. I also did an entire stream at 3.5 hours showing like all of the different, quote unquote perceived authorities, explaining it. But I've dropped it in here many times. I've dropped the video. I've dropped all of the papers showing both the kinematic and dynamic equivalent, and just a basic understanding of relativity shows that what I'm saying is true. If relativity is correct, which is the current models believe, then there's a covariance principle. So
Austin,
there's
I just
also an
want to
equivalence
see
principle.
a diagram of the orbits. That's all I want to see.
Okay. Well, I just told you I'd give you a video, dude. But I don't understand, why is it not clicking with you? If the sun moves around the Earth and then the planets move around the sun, you would have the interior planets and the exterior planets just like you do right now. From our perspective, it would look the same.
I'll be happy to look at your diagram.
You didn't know that,
Can you
though,
just
Bob?
think about what I'm saying, though?
Yeah, I would think that you would already know this. I mean, you're not aware of that equivalence?
I'm more than happy to look at the diagram, and I'll make my assessment from that.
I mean, this can even explain the phases, the Lagrange points. This explains retrograde motion, parallax, stellar aberration. You can literally show equivalence with all of that, Lagrange points and everything.
I mean, on my
I don't
software I
even
use,
believe in a lot of that stuff.
on the software I use, that's an astrological software that brings up charts. You can literally click it geocentric or heliocentric, and it shows that exact equivalence. And it shows all of and you can move it through time, like day by day, week by week, month by month, forward and backward, because it's all related to the ephemeris. And you can literally pull a geocentric chart or a heliocentric chart. And
can you like send me the name of that?
It's the one I use is called Solar Fire.
Okay.
But yeah, I can. It's actually not. It's a little bit of an outdated. It's actually not the best software. Well, it's good for what it is, but it's like a little bit not the most advanced technology in a way. But it is very good in terms of the actual, like, the way that it maps the ephemeris onto the digitally. But it is a paid software too. But you might be able to find it on like a torrent or something. But yeah, I'll post the link to their site.
Have you ever compared it to Stellarium?
It's not cheap. It's not cheap either. It's like a $400 software.
Have you ever compared it to Stellarium or a legitimate planetarium software?
Yeah, dude. It's based on an ephemeris, so yes.
How does it compare to Stellarium?
It's the same thing.
It's the same, yeah.
You say it's the same thing, but can you show me it's the same thing?
This is just pointless interaction, dude.
Can we get a demonstration of these planetary body rotations, like in these programs? Because you're claiming they would look the same. I'd like to see that myself.
I just said I was going to drop you a video that like a 12-year-old could watch and understand it. I explained to you why no one
got one for a 10-year-old.
No one rebutted it, right? Like, I'm like, if the sun moves around the earth and the planets move around the sun, you would have the two planets in between the sun and the earth while the other ones go around the earth while it's around the sun. And then that would give you a kinematic equivalence.
I actually thought I was responding, but my fucking mic was not picking me up for some reason. So if that's the case, like the time it would take a planetary body to go around the earth versus the sun, I just feel like it's going off feelings, right? I feel like it would look completely different from anything I've seen. So I don't know.
Okay, I'll drop the video in less than 5 minutes. Awesome. Well, you won't. He's not.
I think you're right,
but he's not. So
we shall see when you present your diagram.
Well, I find it funny that Bob is pretty well ingrained in the science community, right? Like Bob, you're pretty involved in the community of science. You've had some education in the realm of science, and what we were talking about previously with education and the way that things can be implemented without kind of question, right? And I think this kind of really drives home that point that both sides of the debate throughout history aren't necessarily taught. They just pick one specific one that may have a philosophical belief and even knows that they have a philosophical belief, so they choose that stance. But it's taught as fact in schools and universities, to the point where we can get here and we can have people who are pretty well versed in looking at the stars through telescopes within the science community that have never really even looked into an alternative that has kind of been around for quite some time.
So how does new ideas come in science? Because if it's all a rigid format that you must follow, how do they get new ideas that challenge old ones?
New ideas come up all the time because, your characterization of science is incorrect. And by the way, I determine orbits all the time. I'm quite familiar with the process.
Right. So how have you never heard of like?
I eagerly await your orbital diagram, my friend.
Well, Bob, hold. Let me ask you real quick. Are you familiar with the Swiss ephemeris? Are you familiar?
That?
Do you know what a Swiss ephemeris is?
You tell me.
That would be a no.
I'm familiar with ephemeris, yes.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a Swiss or a German or a Portuguese ephemeris, though. What's specifically, why are you adding the word Swiss to it? What makes
Well,
that
I mean, all right. Well, Swiss ephemeris is based upon essentially NASA's with NASA's JPL. It's called the DEXXX ephemerides that are published by NASA. So I'm just saying the Swiss ephemeris is what's used in the solar fire, the software I was referring to, which shows the dynamic and the kinematic equivalence in terms of heliocentric and geocentric. So it's in line with sort of the mainstream, because they can't lie about the sky directly. You know, like the actual positions of things. That's one thing they can't lie about. Like they can't just, because anyone can check that on the ground. So that part, you know, so I'm just letting you know that a Swiss ephemeris shows the degree and position of all of these planetary bodies and all of these, if you want to call them that, celestial objects. And the geocentric and heliocentric equivalence is easily transparent within the ephemeris, which is the an entire a compendium which shows all of the degree positions of all of these celestial objects. And so I just thought you would have known that the geocentric and the heliocentric are equivalent, you know, in terms of the actual positioning of them.
Solar Fire, to be clear, is sold as astrology software rather than astronomy software. It's not quite the same as, say, Stellarium. It's quite good. It's a lot of work's gone into it.
Yeah. Well, but it uses yes, of course, it is an astrology software, but it uses the astronomical ephemerides, which are the same as
I'm sure it does.
The same that are used in astronomy. So
all right, so Gio, do me a favor, since you've got that, tell me where Andromeda is right now. Right now.
So demanding. Good Lord.
Yeah, if you had to point to a specific, which software would you use? Would it be this astrology one, or would it be a more astronomy based one?
It would be Stellarium.
Either way, the positions
of
these things are the positions of these things as seen from our point of view, regardless, right?
But if you're trying to argue a point, which one would you use?
Stellarium.
Yeah. No, I agree, Bob.
Absolutely.
It's kind of a limited choice. It's not exactly like you can draw like a astrological chart, right?
Yeah. But
you'd have to have some training to do that, right?
In astrology, they need the astronomical accuracy in astrology. Astrology is a whole separate topic, and whether we want to discuss that or not is a whole separate thing. It's not really. I didn't bring it up for that. It's the astronomical equivalence.
I just mean like that. Like you'd have to draw it up. I mean, or have some software to do it. Like you know.
Well, like the point is that Andromeda.
Okay.
The point is that Andromeda is not visible right now. I'd like to know where it is, because it will be visible tonight. But I want to know where it is right now.
Hey, what does that do for society? Like, what is the benefit to society to know where Andromeda is?
The benefit to this conversation. I don't know about society.
Its position doesn't change based on your either model you're looking at. The models are built off based on where these things are observed, right? So why would you think it would change between a geocentric and a heliocentric if they have an equivalence?
Well, the reason that I'm asking is that I know for a fact right now Andromeda is below the horizon in the United States. I want to know where it is. And if you verify that something is below the horizon, behind the Earth, I want to know how we know that.
Bob, you realize we're kind of arguing geocentrism versus heliocentrism. We haven't even gotten into whether or not we're on a stationary plane or anything along those lines. It's just solely based off geocentrism versus heliocentrism. That's
Spoilers, it's a globe.
How
You're roboting.
Yeah, just listen to the robot overlord.
Gotcha.
Well, you did bring ephemeris into the equation here, and ephemeris says that Andromeda is below the horizon. So I would like to know where that is.
No, nobody's saying it's not below the horizon.
Interesting.
Did anybody say
Okay,
it's
so
not
where is
below
it?
the horizon, Bob?
Okay, so where is it then? In relationship to the surface of the Earth.
I don't know. I'd have to look. I'm in the middle of work right now.
Well, like if all the stars circulate east to west over flat Earth, right? Isn't it just over somewhere else? Why is that so hard?
Well,
Is it always east to
Shane, we're
west
not
though
even.
over the flat Earth?
Shane,
You can go to the
we haven't even
equator
gotten
and
that far yet, Shane. We're
Yeah,
just talking.
all right.
and
They can't even wrap their head around geocentrism. That's what we're discussing. But the problem is when they realize that geocentrism certainly has an equivalence to heliocentrism, they immediately went to, like Bob is doing right now, switch to flat Earth versus globe Earth, which is a completely different topic. It's non sequitur and it's a
All
red
right,
herring.
well then let's go ahead and make it easier for you. How do you plot asteroids on a geocentric universe?
Bob, you know
We
the
use
Earth is
different view,
stationary
Bob.
and geocentric, right? It's not spinning, or do you still think it's spinning like you told me the other day in chat?
Excuse me, say again?
The other day we talked in chat and you told me the geocentric model has a spinning Earth. You still believe that?
Why'd I do that? Why'd I do that?
I mean, the thing is, Bob, they're all positions on the celestial sphere. And however you want to define the celestial sphere, ultimately it's visible as a hemispherical dome above our heads, which is why a planetarium is shaped that way, etc. So however, whatever model, if someone wants to beg a question or reify it into some other kind of concept, that's a separate situation from the actual, your azimuth and the hemispherical field at which you're observing the celestial object. And that's
Okay,
mapped
how
systems, like a gear system above the Earth.
how would you determine an orbit on the geocentric model with things all spinning around on their own spheres?
Well, they're making their own track through the sky. Like if you have a planetarium that has like a dome shape to it, or if you walk outside and look at the sort of the dome of the ceiling, as it were, that you can see, you know, that particular, let's say Mercury, will be moving. I mean, you can almost view it like a car on a racetrack. Like it's moving on its particular track between the tropics by degree and its speed, its cycle, etc. It's just tracking through the sky in relation to the fixed stars, in relation to all the other bodies.
All right, well, I'm going to wait for Witsit to show me the exact path that object is taking in relationship to the Earth and the Sun. And then I'll decide whether or not that's useful. Do you have
To
any
me, it
idea
makes
why
sense
we
that
choose
only
heliocentric?
things that would have an orbit between, allegedly, but between the sun and the Earth would be affected drastically by how you would plot it compared to if you put the Earth in the center and everything moving around it, planets moving around the sun and everything else just moving around the Earth. I don't think that would be a drastic change, would it?
Well, we can demonstrate that Venus and Mercury both have an orbit between us and the Sun. And no other planet has an orbit between us and the Sun.
Just like
So
I said.
The answer to your question would be yes. It would look extremely different. If you
I'm very
had,
curious as to how he's going to draw the orbits out.
yeah.
So regardless of how the plot looks, if we if we plot it out solely based off of our observation and the assumption of it being in the center, why would it make any difference? Because we're doing what we observe is what we observe.
Correct. And I want to see whether or not your plot matches actual observations.
Why are you saying my plot? I don't have a plot, Bob.
I know. I'm talking Witsit's plot. I want to see his plot and see whether or not it matches actual observations.
I mean, it already is geocentric because we're on Earth and we observe everything on Earth. So it already is geocentric.
Just out of curiosity, does the Earth spin in geocentric models?
No.
So how are if the Earth is, or if the sun is orbiting around the Earth, how do we have days and nights if the Earth is not spinning?
Dude, if it was spinning, you wouldn't have day and night.
I mean, I'm not saying this is what it is, but if you're talking about a globe geocentric idea, then you have a globe, and then everything is moving around it.
Okay, but how do days work? How do we establish 24 hours, the 24-hour day in a geocentric model?
The sun moves around it. The sun moves around it.
Hold on just a second. So instead of the Earth spinning to cause the 24 hours, it's the movement of the sun around the Earth in 24 hours. It's pretty simple.
That explains the year. All of the galaxies, all of the stars. You'd have to include that wobble that happens as well. So all, like you like to say, the Earth's got this funny tilty wobble, and it's, but like to say it's the Earth isn't moving and it's everything else. A lot more things are going to have that funny tilty wobble to them. So which is more funny, one Earth doing it or the entire universe?
What do you mean? A lot of things will have a funny tilty wobble.
I just want to go back though. If the sun is spinning around the Earth, we've established that we can figure out what a year is, but that doesn't tell you what a day is. How does a day happen in a geocentric model?
No, that's a good point, because if you aren't spinning, you aren't getting a dark side of the Earth. And if it is the sun going around in one day, what's a year? Yeah, it's a good question.
Dude,
I guess
the year is based on the relationship of the background stars to the sun, the same way that it is in your model.
Well, think about it. If the Earth isn't spinning and the sun is the thing that's causing night and day, okay, and it has to go around the Earth to make it night and day on the other side, that would be equivalent to the Earth going around the sun in 1 year.
No.
Yes.
No, not if the background. It's based on relation to the. Okay, then just talk if you don't want to hear the answer.
Oh yeah, I'll go on mute. It's fine.
You know, the other problem that you run into is since you've absolutely locked into a non-rotating Earth on a geocentric model, we can demonstrate rotation. That rules out the geocentric model. Thank you.
Nope, because you can have an equivalence. You can have an equivalence to the sidereal rotation having effects on Earth. That's not too difficult either, Bob. So Demonstryde, are you still having a problem comprehending that if the sun moves around the Earth in 24 hours, and then if we base the year based on where the sun's plot it, dude, never mind. You obviously don't want to listen. You just want to talk.
I don't. I do want to respond really quick though. So it's 24 times 365 is the amount of times the sun goes around the Earth in your model. No, 20. Or wait, let's see.
You can sit there and just try to spout things out and try to figure out what I'm trying to say, or you can just let me speak without talking over me, and maybe you can understand it.
Will you confirm, though, that if the Earth is rotating, the geocentric model rules out?
No one has proved that, and it just goes to show you guys have not researched the geocentric model if that's your belief, that it would spin. If the Earth is spinning and it's geocentric, you would see the same things in the sky all the time.
Okay, so you agree then that if the Earth is actually found to be rotating, that rules out the geocentric model?
The Earth has not been found to be rotating. Napalm just told you the distant galaxies spinning, that movement can be translated to the Earth and cause what you say a pendulum processes.
But
all right, so if the Earth can be demonstrated to be rotating, that would rule out the geocentric model, yes or no?
Why don't you demonstrate that and get yourself a Nobel Prize, because nobody else has actually been able to do it, Bob.
Bob, it's too bad that people can't think of these hypotheticals. You know, I mean, they're so indoctrinated into flat Earth. You'd think they'd be able to handle
you're right.
question.
Why do you think
You're-
I locked them in? Why do you think I locked them
You're
in?
right.
Saying
We all
that,
grew up being indoctrinated into the flat Earth. We have never changed our worldview ever. You're correct.
Well, if you only grew
We've
up a
spent our
couple
whole
years ago,
entire
it might be
life
the case.
listening to what we've been told. We've never thought outside the box and tried to look at things from a different perspective. You're right,
why do you
Demonstryde.
think I locked them into that? Why
You
do you
guys
think
are
I locked
literally
them into the
projecting.
stationary Earth and geocentrism?
You guys are stuck.
You think that's a gotcha? That's the funny thing is you think that's a gotcha. Like locking us into that has some sort of bearing on the
Well,
conversation.
now we've got a test for geocentrism. If I can demonstrate Earth rotation, I've
No,
ruled
you
out
can't.
geocentrism by your own admission.
You can't show the movement of the Earth from Earth. Period.
You hear that? Nuh-uh, Bob? That's a pretty strong nuh-uh.
We'll see.
Just because you say that it's a nuh-uh doesn't mean that you've actually proven it.
And
Was it a
Einstein said the
nuh-uh, though?
same nuh-uh, so yeah, it's whatever.
I'm still curious as to how you would establish day and night and years if the Earth is not spinning. Can you just try and filter that?
Here's an answer for you.
Here,
I
let
figured
me.
it out.
If
Is the sun-
Demonstryde would not talk over me, and I can just say 2 sentences, I can do it. Can we agree to that?
The problem is that you have to speak your own sentences and not be interrupted. Is that what you're trying to say? So this is what it sounds like you're trying to say. Just getting interrupted while you're trying to explain something. Yeah. Give it a shot, man.
So
Go
if
for it.
the Earth is stationary and the sun moves around it every 24 hours, that's your day and night. If you want to base the year off the same way we currently base the year, which is the sun's position in relation to the background stars, then that's all you have to do. The stars move at a different rate than the sun. When those things come back into alignment, it's a year. Pretty simple.
So your year is how many times the sun goes around the Earth, and the heliocentric one is how many times the Earth goes around the sun. Except, it is though. It is. You can say it's when it met. You can say it's when it matches up, and that's the definite, but it's not. I mean, that just correlates with where you are once you get to that year mark. It's in no way, in no shape does it say it's when the background stars align with the sun. It's after the Earth has gone around the sun. That's the year.
You realize it's the same thing. The demarcation of what you see in the sky to dictate your year is the same regardless of whether you're looking at it from one perspective or the other.
You could do that to confirm your position, and you can also use
That's all
other
you do.
methods.
Either side is doing.
Okay, yeah, gotcha. Here's the thing, though. There's other forms of information and data you can use and gather. You don't just have to use the stars like you're, some
Do you guys
ancient dirt culture.
subject?
I'll
It's
go on
actually like embarrassing.
Dude, is it just me with it, or is this? Why is this hard to comprehend?
It's like mind-blowingly
I comprehend it.
embarrassing.
It's just
so
wrong.
incompetent that it's embarrassing.
It's so simple. It's like, why couldn't you think of something more complicated?
Demonstryde, you should stop talking, dude, because it's weird, dude, what you're saying at this point.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's let it be an echo chamber.
I'm literally making a video right now showing all of it. Like a cartoon that a 10-year-old can watch shows how ignorant you guys are being. And it's sad that you're so confident at the same time.
They don't want to comprehend it. They just want their echo chamber with it.
It's so funny.
No,
It's like
you guys literally just told me to be
research
quiet
for being
so you can have your fucking echo chamber. How is this? This will never be a science echo chamber ever.
Demonstryde, you're just speaking out of ignorance. You don't actually know what you're talking about. The fact that you don't understand the kinematic equivalence isn't something to be really loud about.
Did I say that I knew any of those words? I'll look into those. I don't really care about that argument right now.
Hey, Demonstryde, does the path of the sun have anything like for a year to do with the Tropic of Cancer, the Tropic of Capricorn, and the equator?
That is a very confuddled question. Could you maybe clear that one up?
It just shows that you can't understand it, obviously.
You're trying to equate the path of the sun with the tropics and the time correlated. Yeah, the time's correlated, but that can be the answer for both. There's no explanation in what you're claiming. It's just a claim.
Dude, you just said that you don't care about the kinematic equivalence, and that's literally what we're discussing. So again, it's just like a really gross ignorance level,
All right,
right?
well,
Like,
I'll be quiet and I'll let you guys continue having your echo chamber.
no, it's
Well,
not about that. It's about the fact that you're not like actually understanding the conversation, and it's like you're not trying to.
Well, what was the? I stepped away, so maybe I missed what was going on. What was the topic about the sun, or what? What was Demonstryde saying?
You're saying something about like the seasons and the movement of the sun and what determines a year. And then I was trying to explain to him the kinematic equivalence. He says he doesn't care about that. So like he doesn't understand that's what a kinematic equivalence is.
Well,
it's just weird.
To be fair, you said, Demonstryde, you don't know anything you're talking about. You don't know anything about the kinematic equation. And I was like, yeah, I didn't claim to know the equation. That's not what I've been arguing. I don't know if
I
you've
never said
not been listening with it, but
I never said equation. I said equivalence.
Well,
I said like what your very question is answered by understanding the kinematic equivalence. So
okay,
anyway,
so
I'm like
in order
literally
to,
making the analogy. I want you to take note of this moment. I have like 500 things I'm doing, right? I've just now gone through all kinds of documents. I'm looking through all my videos. I'm cutting things out. I'm piecing together a video and then rendering it when I finish. All of that to appease their request, right? As if it's a good faith inquiry. I'm going to then drop the video and let's just keep note of what actually transpires.
Will this video have the orbital paths of the planets?
Isn't that the very thing that we were discussing that I said I would get?
Just want to make sure that's what you're working on.
Dude, it can't be in good faith if they can't understand this Earth can be stationary in the geocentric model and everything be equivalent. It can't be a good faith argument at this point.
Dude, it's like they need to go read their model. That's all I'm saying. Like you just guys don't understand it. I'm not even trying to be rude or something. I'm saying like this is pretty clearly just ignorance. So it's
I would
a
say
very
you don't have to
simple
try to be rude. You're right. Kind of comes natural, man.
Well, the fact that you're not listening, it's weird, right? Like you don't.
The fact you think I should believe and understand everything you say is fact is weird. Like, you realize that's how conversation arguments go. You present an idea, and I ask about the facts, and you guys go like, "Well, you don't believe me off the thing I just said because you're a globie and you believe it because you're a sheep."
That's wrong.
That's
People are
what
just
it feels like all the time.
Demonstryde. People are just asking you to like.
If I drop the PDFs right now that show all of it, you won't even read it.
All right, so Austin, are you saying then that Mercury and Venus orbit the sun, and then that whole system orbits the Earth? Is that your claim? Is that how this works?
What I said was that is one of the options that objectively would explain everything that we see, no matter how much you say no.
I haven't said nah. I'm just asking.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. You said it wouldn't work and it wouldn't look the same. That's what you said.
I take it you got the.
That Venus and Mercury orbit the sun, and then that whole system orbits the Earth, and then the outer planets. Where are they orbiting? Are they outside?
They all orbit around the sun it goes outside the Earth. I've explained that 5 times. I've just dropped 2 PDFs that show all the mathematics of the kinematic and dynamic equivalence from within your own paradigm. You guys won't read it. I've dropped these papers in here for the last 3 weeks. The same people come back the next day and do the same thing. If you want to actually read it, there's all the math. I'm now making a video right now. So I'm piecing to retrograde motion, the orbital motions, all of it, in a video with the Lagrange equivalence, all of it. You can see it go from the heliocentric model, then move the central point over to the Earth. And it literally shows you a visualization of the equivalence, right? And if you just keep denying it at that point, I mean, it's just weird.
Okay, so basically you've got the entire solar system going around the sun, and then the solar system itself orbits the Earth? Is that what you're saying?
Okay, we don't have to use the word solar system. That means that it goes around the sun. The planets move in the neotectonic system. In the neotectonic system, the planets move around the sun while the sun moves around the Earth. This isn't complicated. I've said it literally 7 times.
Okay, so the planet, that would be a solar system, right?
Yeah.
No.
The planets orbit the sun. That's what we call the solar system. And then the solar system orbits the Earth. I got you.
Yeah,
Holy shit! Why don't you guys just look into it and come back with questions later?
Well, I just dropped the PDFs that you guys can read. Are you guys going to read the PDFs? Are you guys going to read the PDF?
At work, while I'm at work here, I'm gonna pop that PDF open while I'm, managing this hydraulic press because that's how voice chats work. But yeah, I will look at your
know I
data.
didn't.
I will look at. What's really gross though is to say that you're just claiming people aren't going to look at your information. I mean, that's a weird tactic to use.
I just asked you if you were going to look at it. So how does that equate?
No, but you already
to
claimed I wasn't going to beforehand. I typically would.
Can we just stick to the top? Can we just stick to the topic though? I mean, whether he looks into it and integrates it or not is kind of his own personal journey. Technically, I mean,
no, it's not about integrating it. It's about this. This is blatantly disrespectful for you to claim that you want to know what we're talking about, and then I go research through thousands of documents I have. I drop them in the chat, and if you ignore them, it just goes to make my point that you guys are not here with good faith. Are you going to read the PDFs?
It would be disrespectful if the thing happens that you are claiming is going to happen. Yeah, I guess that could be. Maybe
I'm asking you if you're going to read the PDFs I just spent the time to go find.
Yeah, was that before or after you claimed I wouldn't read them?
Okay, that's why I've now changed it to asking if you're going to. Hey, Bob, are you going to read the PDFs?
I think he's driving right now.
Because this is literally, it breaks down all the math.
Yeah, I sure am.
Okay.
I sure am going to have a look at them, and I'll come back and let you know what I think.
Awesome.
When do you want to talk about them?
That's what. Whenever you read them.
I'll read by tomorrow.
Well, let me just
start a question real quick.
I was just gonna read. Sorry, what you were gonna say something, Napalm? Let me just say this. I was just going to read the abstract from the one Newtonian Machian analysis of the neo-tectonic model of planetary motions. I was just going to read the abstract real quick so everyone can kind of get a sense of it, and then they can read it, the whole thing. The calculation of the trajectories of the Sun, Earth, Mars system is performed using two different models, both in the framework of Newtonian mechanics. The first model is the well-known Copernican system, which assumes that the Sun is at rest and all the other planets orbit around it. The second is a less well-known, developed by Tycho Brahe, 1546 to 1601, according to which the Earth stands still, the Sun orbits around the Earth, and the other planets orbit around the Sun. The term neo-Tychonian system refers to the assumption that orbits of distant masses around the Earth are synchronized with the Sun's orbit. It is the aim of this paper to show how kinematical and dynamical equivalence of these systems under the assumption of Mach's principle.
Yep, and he shows all the math, and it's irrefutable. I even sent it to PhD astronomers, and they conceded.
Where does the centripetal force come from in the gravitational equations of buoyancy, then, if there is no rotation?
No, there's angular momentum of the cosmos around the Earth.
Okay.
So I had a question for you. You seem really confused about the Earth being in the center and how day and night works and how years work. So if you were tomorrow somehow dropped in the middle of nowhere with no access to anything except food, water, and everything to survive, how would you demarcate a year?
You guys can Demonstryde that?
Yeah, that was for Demonstryde.
Oh yeah, I would mark it probably a time throughout the day. I'd mark where the sun's location is in the sky. Absolutely.
So you agree it moves between the tropics and over the equator throughout the year?
Solstice to solstice.
Yeah, that works too. I agree. In both models, you have the sun appearing to be in. I'm saying, like, using the appearance of something shouldn't be your epitome of like, well, it looks like this, so I'm just gonna, hold to this idea. Well, we've got measurements of data that say otherwise.
All right, so you're also saying that both of them give you the equivalent data, which is simpler.
Look, so we've already devolved to the next tactic. So first it was that it's not true and it's not possible. Now it's which one is simpler, as if existence has some type of obligation to conform to your need of simplicity. But ironically, the geocentric model is significantly more simple, elegant, and adaptable because once you extend it beyond the local system, the heliocentric model becomes significantly more complicated.
It does?
As you have contradictory motions.
As it does?
Yes. And
About
also,
that?
what's even funnier than this is most people think that even on the local system, the geocentric model is more complicated. But actually, if you compare the two systems, Kepler actually had to add more ellipses. He had 48, where the geocentric model had 40.
You do know that Tycho Brahe believed the Earth is spherical, though, don't you?
That's called a non sequitur. Do you know what that is?
That was a question, though.
Well, only in so much as he understood that he could create this model, the Neo-Tychonian model, based upon it being a spherical Earth. And
Really, what part of it's based upon it being a sphere?
Is everything about the equivalence between the two kinematic systems is based upon it being a sphere.
Really, what part about it specifically requires it be a sphere?
Because there's a celestial sphere that moves entirely around the realm of the Earth.
Okay, so why does that require it be a sphere?
Because it's the celestial realm is spherical, and half of it can be seen at one time by people in one place in the Earth, and half of it can be seen by people on the other side of the Earth.
That has nothing to do with any of the kinematics explained in the Tychonic system whatsoever.
If you draw an equivalence between the modern understanding of heliocentrism and geocentrism through the kinematic model, you are using the same kinematic vectors. Therefore, there is an equivalence.
Okay, that's right. People use the current model and show that there's an equivalence,
right.
But there is no exclusivity of sphericity.
Why'd you say that?
Okay, we'll do it for a flat Earth then.
And this is what's super funny is you guys have look how much it's changed, right? So first it was that this isn't true. You can just look at stars.
I didn't say it wasn't true.
There is no kinematic equivalent.
I didn't say it
if
wasn't
we
true.
interrupt Austin, the Earth becomes a ball that's tilted wobbling defying physics. I bet.
Yeah, don't interrupt.
I didn't say any of that.
So first,
let him finish.
I'm just denoting the progression of the conversation. First, it was that it's not true. There isn't a kinematic equivalence. You can't explain the two interior planets and the motions of the planets can't be explained with geocentrism. That we just don't understand it. It would look different. That then it's evolved into, well, which one is simpler? And now it's evolved into, well, it treats the Earth as if it's a sphere, right? So instead
That's
of
how conversation works, man.
No, it's not.
We can go back to yes, it is. We can go back to that. But do you want to keep talking about the same point? I think people will bring up logical conclusions that they want to find an end to. If you don't think conversations evolve, man, I don't know, like why you would even start going as if that's something to argue against. Like, look at how this conversation got to where it is now.
I'm just going to finish making my point. So the way conversations actually work is if you have a certain subject or point that's being discussed, it carries out to the conclusion of that point. If one person in the conversation is challenging a point and then they're demonstrated to be wrong, it is intellectually dishonest to just avoid that conclusion and change the subject. Intellectual honesty necessitates that you actually acknowledge the conclusion of the specific point, not use red herrings and divert and obfuscate to other points and move the goalpost as soon as you're shown to be wrong.
Okay, so we're making the argument between geocentrism and heliocentrism. But you will agree that both are based on a globe Earth, and we are simply looking at the different arrangement of the solar system. But
we're literally not talking about that. We're not talking about if it's a globe or flat. It's a diversion. It's a desperate attempt to try to pretend like you didn't get intellectually dunked on. Yeah, that's why you're also interrupting me a lot, because the only way to win this debate, quote unquote, for you is to censor the other person's position and to constantly change the subject until you can find a point you think you get them on. So it's bad faith. It's called bad faith.
Yeah, I would say in order to move the conversation to whether or not the Earth was a globe or if it was flat.
We're still going.